All right, today we are examining Nike and LeBron James's controversial MLK themed shoe release. Now, critics argue the design commercializes tragedy, prompting questions about brand responsibility and cultural sensitivity. Public relations expert KJ Blattenbauer joins us now to break down what went wrong and why. Thank you for your time today, KJ. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's give the viewers a little context if we can, KJ. The controversy stems from the upcoming release of the Nike LeBron 23 Honor the King colorway. Now, the teal colored design is, I guess, the one of 23 special LeBron colorways meant to highlight moments from James's career. But Nike said the Honor the King shoe draws inspiration from the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, where civil rights activist Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. How does a major brand like Nike, surrounded by elite marketers, allow a concept like this to move from the brainstorm concept to approval? And what typically breaks down in this review process, KJ?
Well, I think it's a textbook example of why brands need cultural veto power. Someone in the room whose job is solely to stop a campaign, not because it might be offensive, in which case this one is, but because it's misaligned with the moment. Honoring someone like Dr. King, it requires restraint, humility, and
Mhm.
context. And then when you're selling a $200 product on top of it, the bar isn't creativity, it's care over commercialization. I don't think Nike and LeBron are being criticized with the intent behind it, honoring Martin Luther King, a great thing. I think they're being criticized for how they chose to do it. When you tie any commercial product to the site of a real assassination, like the Lorraine Motel, you shift the tribute straight to commercialization. And I think that's where the huge line was crossed.
Yeah. Is there a strategy miscalculation or a values misalignment? How can companies tell the difference?
Well, I think you have to go through layers of approval, right? And I'm assuming that this one must have. Brands confuse symbolism with sensitivity. And I think big teams, big corporations, they become echo chambers, especially when the brand is powerful, especially when the athlete is untouchable. No
Hmm.
one wants to be the person that stands up and says, I don't think this one's going to land the way that we want it to. And I understand that design is subjective, but history isn't. So when cultural trauma is involved, the margin for error shrinks dramatically. And I think people have to look at it through a different lens, not a sensitivity lens, but a is this strategy doing what we want it to do?
Michael Jordan, if you remember, steered away from a lot of politics, and he was kind of given bad light because he didn't really pick up the politics. He says, "Listen, Republicans, Democrats alike, buy my shoes." LeBron is more likely to step into the politics side of it. What does this controversy reveal about the risks of blending celebrity branding with cultural or historical references?
I think when your name and your platform are powerful, like LeBron's are, opting out of responsibility isn't always going to be realistic. Times have changed dramatically since Michael
Hmm.
Jordan was the
Hmm.
greatest person ever, right? Like LeBron's kind of stepped into his shoes. So I think leadership in LeBron's case, it means asking harder questions before something goes public.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, KJ, but you've also got Tiger Woods, right? Tiger, he also picked up that mantle. There was Michael, Tiger, then LeBron. I think in that way, and we didn't see Tiger delve into a lot of politics. Did you?
No, Tiger never delved into politics. And the great thing about Tiger is that he was good about listening without defending when he was wrong. He was good about
Hmm.
acknowledging when he made the mistakes. He understood he was human, other people were human, and I think he looked at if there was an issue with anything he was doing, pulling the product, making a statement, because he realized it was less damaging to do that than to double down. I think
Yeah.
sometimes people, for instance, LeBron, surround themselves by too many yes men, and I don't think there's anyone standing up to him saying, especially at Nike, "Hey, I don't think this is a good look."
Yeah. Where is that line between honoring history and profiting from trauma?
I think it's acknowledging what the history is, and I think that it's working with the people involved. LeBron didn't reach out to the estate of Martin Luther King Jr. He went ahead and did what he wanted to do, and I think you have to be super sensitive. How are we going to honor this person? How does it make sense? How will the public perceive it? The intent doesn't outweigh the impact. In this case, the impact is just so tone deaf, it outweighs everything. You have to make sure that the impact you're trying to make with your statement, honoring Dr. Martin Luther King, they could have donated to one of the museums. They could have donated to one of the sites. They could have picked any other colorway whatsoever possible to honor him. Instead, they went with the site of his assassination. I think that's the first part of where they screwed up.
Yeah. Does Nike get too much benefit of doubt because of its reputation for social messaging?
I think Nike gets it's one hand one thing, one hand the other. This just reminds people, a $200 shoe, and Nike has a reputation for using kids who are making no money to make those shoes. It points a spotlight on that. When you do something that creates public backlash, it draws a spotlight on all the other public backlash. I think celebrities, I think big corporations get a much bigger pass than smaller ones, and I think that it's a shame. But then when they overstep, like Cracker Barrel, like the Coke formula change, I think the public's really quick to rip them back into shape.
Yeah. If Nike chooses not to pull the shoe, KJ, what message does that send, and how do they manage the narrative moving forward?
I think if they choose to not pull the shoe, I think they're doubling down and saying they can do nothing wrong. And they're telling their consumers, they are telling people who might buy their shoe or who won't buy their shoe, anyone listening, they don't care what you think. They're going to make what they make. You're going to get what you get. If people end up buying the shoe now because it has a negative connotation or just to get it out of stores, that's still money in Nike's pockets. That's still money going to LeBron. And so I think people speaking up, refusing to buy the shoe, I think that's the only way you get the message across.
Nike's not averse to controversy. We remember the football player, I forget his name now, for the San Francisco 49ers, who knelt, and they backed him 100%.
hmm Yep. Nike is really good about backing its athletes. It's great when you have someone who's a spokesperson for your company and they have your sole support. But again, when you've misstepped, the greatest thing that you can do for public perception and to endear yourself to the public again, apologize sincerely, understand where you went wrong, and then actually back up that apology with physical actions, because your actions are going to speak louder than the world. Okay, we did this wrong. We're sorry. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. It really is that simple.
As brands continue to navigate culture, history, and social values, what's the single most important question every company should ask itself before releasing a product tied to a sensitive or tragic moment, KJ?
Is what we're trying to do with this release helpful? Does it benefit? Does it honor? Or are we just trying to make a buck off a tragedy? I think you have to have a serious conversation about that.
Okay. Public relations expert KJ Blattenbauer, thank you so much for your insight today. Sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, 36 now past the hour. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back here with the day's top stories next on KFYR Plus.